What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sun Belt Syndicate. I came prepared. I don't know how well you can see this on the video, but I've got my GS polo on, thanks to Coach Wofford for hitting us up with these things. It is in direct not correlation, I guess I should say, with the App State stuff behind me, but game recognizes game, right, fellas? And if I get shown respect and appreciation, I will do the same back. And to boot, it's a really nice polo. Is this like a team one, or is this maybe something
nice
else?
one we get?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I have one somewhere. I don't know if I can find it right now, but ours is navy blue. It's all right. Yeah, I like that one a little bit better.
yeah, it's definitely high quality. When I opened the box, I sent the Seth and Marv a text, and I was like, dude, this is not just some t-shirt. This is a very nice polo that you could wear to work and everything else. So definitely appreciate Coach specifically, but I'm sure there's other people that were involved in helping him get that and sending it off to us, and looks pretty good. I shared it on there's a Georgia Southern Discord that I joined as being part of the Sun Belt Syndicate, and they were appreciative and a little surprised that an App State guy would wear it. But if it looks good and you guys send it, we're wearing it. I got some ULM Warhawk stuff too, and spread the love around, right? Well, before I get too far along, I do want to say Marv is out on family vacation. Seth had something come up last minute, but I am very grateful that Josh and Kade are both here tonight, making some time to be with us. As we discussed, they are the only Sun Belt team that does not play a midweek game this week at all, but it looked like literally every other team in the conference had a game tonight, 13 other games. I know you guys had practice. Is there any care or interest from the players about what's going on around the league, or you kind of hear about it later and it comes how it comes and you don't really care really one way or another what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wouldn't say we really focus on it because we try to kind of stay in our own bubble to focus on ourselves as a team, so we don't get kind of caught off guard on everything else around us and just focus on what we can do for ourselves. But I mean, everybody likes to hear everything. You know how it is.
Yeah. And when I get time, like this week, I like to watch games. I mean, since we didn't play Sunday, I got to catch some of the Coastal Eastern Carolina game, try to get on ESPN Plus as much as I can when, we have some downtime, or, maybe we don't play until later in the day. So I have some free time to watch some baseball, but, I try to keep up, or, more like game film, I guess, just to watch what, hitters do or whatever, or see what their arms look like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, especially from your vantage point of kind of checking out what some tendencies or ticks are. How much you kind of hate to ask this from the standpoint of a fan who has to watch the ESPN Plus. Some feeds are decent, some are not so great. How much of that is actually helpful, and how much of it is just kind of watching to kind of see what happens? Because I don't know, I guess specifically, and I'll bring it up, I'm sure some Southern fans will love this. The Georgia State production the other week was pretty bad. They had one camera that was kind of close up towards, I guess, the batter's box, kind of from, I think it was looking from like the third baseline. I think that's kind of roughly where the shot was coming in from. But then they went to this camera behind the pitcher, and it was hard to even see whether it was a ball or a strike from that vantage point, because it was all the way out in the outfield with a camera that wasn't even, high def looking. So, I mean, is that helpful, or is at that point you're just kind of just watching to see what happens? I don't know. Kade, we'll start with you on that one.
I mean, there's been a few cases. There was one, I didn't get to travel to Jacksonville for the midweek last week, and that broadcast was pretty shaky. Just, they had a camera in center field, and the wind there was horrible that day, so the camera was shaking, it felt like, the whole time. But in that case, like, I just wanted to watch the game just to, because I wasn't able to go, so I wanted to be a part in some way of being able to watch all 9 innings. But some definitely are, especially coming from a pitcher standpoint, like being able to see what other teams' pitchers are doing to certain hitters. You kind of get a feel for and see how hitters do against certain pitches or whatever. But you can only get so much from watching a game rather than playing it.
That's a good point. Josh, what about you from your vantage?
Same thing from my side. kind of the opposite. Seeing pictures. When you have the bad quality places like that, camera wise, it's kind of hard to see. You can only see so much. But on the good cameras quality side, like it does help, and you see how like you can look at different types of players and how he said how they pitch different types of hitters. You can look at that from an offensive standpoint and see how pitchers pitch certain guys, and it does help a lot. And I think it's good stuff.
Nice. I bet all the parents, though, are probably very thankful that when they can't manage to get to a game, ESPN Plus is a nice place to be able to watch you guys play specifically, or other guys on the team, and be able to follow the team without having to get to every game. I mean, we know football is essentially once a week, right? It's just one game on a Saturday or a Thursday or a Tuesday since we're in the Sun Belt, and then basketball's usually twice a week. But you guys go crazy because you got 3 in a row on weekends. There's some early start times. So I know as a fan, I'm tremendously grateful that we have some kind of agreement with ESPN Plus and not the Flow Sports. Whoops, sorry for mentioning that. But, I routinely hear the same type of thing. So I think the Sun Belt will be glad to have the ESPN Plus partnership continue. So I'm thankful for that. And, unfortunately, I don't know if you guys heard this, but where I'm at in North Carolina is like an hour and a half from Campbell, and you guys came all the way up here, and I'm like, oh man, this is great. This is a good game, good series to go take in person. It's not too far from the house, like an hour and a half away. And of course, Marv's not that far from me, probably 40 minutes. So from him, it's roughly the same time frame to get to Campbell. And we both had crazy stuff going on that weekend with kids' games and everything else. I actually went the other side of the state to Winston-Salem for a kids' hockey game. So it's like disappointing. I'm like, man, I can go right down the road and see these guys. For the only time I believe that you guys are going to be that close to me, besides this weekend, which is Conway for you, which we'll talk about. That one's about 3 hours. How long of a bus ride is that for you guys on that one?
4.
Yeah, maybe a little more than 4, but we'll make a stop. So let's say 5. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, have you guys played there before? I guess we'll just jump into it now since it kind of came up naturally.
I have not. I've been there before, but no, I've never gotten the chance to play there.
I haven't either. I've never been there before, so this will be a first for me as well.
Nice. Well, I know you guys have a pretty nice park where you're at. I've heard good things about Coastal. Technically I've been there, right? Like I've walked around it during the football season when you're walking literally around it to get to the game from some parking lots. I've heard great things. I know that it's a nice setup, usually got a pretty good atmosphere. You guys have pretty rowdy crowd too. I know Clement's crazies. I think I see him going nuts and giving the other team a little hell. What is it like on the road in the Sun Belt? And we'll talk about some of your experiences from the past as well. But you seeing raucous crowds most places, or are some places pretty tame compared to others? Josh, let's start with you on that one.
I feel like it depends on where you go. The crowd of different places is different everywhere you go. But I feel like it honestly depends on like how series went the year before, depending on like how how series get chirpy and stuff like that. I feel like it just depends on stuff like that. And when the fans are engaged from the year before, they'll always come back the next year to see how it goes again.
That's a good point. Okay.
And I haven't had any, experience in the Sun Belt before this coming weekend. But, I've been, given the opportunity to play in front of some pretty big crowds in college. And, it's having a good college atmosphere to baseball games is uncomparable for me compared to a lot of other things I've been able to do in my life. But, playing at Clemson a few years ago was when they were, so that was my sophomore year. They were loaded that year too. They've been good for the past few years, but playing in front of that sold out crowd, it was like graduation weekend. It was all the parents were in town. Everything was going on. So, they sold out Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So stuff like that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, we'll actually transition into that because I had a question specifically on that. You guys are both now in the Sun Belt. You came into this league or this team specifically from the SEC and the ACC. Talk about what you've seen maybe that's similar or different. And I mean, I hope you talk about there not being much of a drop off, because we constantly say on this show and online and the socials that we don't believe that the Sun Belt is truly a mid-major conference when it comes to baseball. There's enough interest, enough intrigue with the fans, the passion, the fact that they're filling up stadiums, pretty well traveled. Obviously, like we talked about with the baseball travel not being the easiest for fans, but when there's a weekend set that's pretty interesting, I think we see, a good amount of away fans making some of those trips. I guess we'll start with Kade. Go back to you, man. You've seen some big atmospheres and big part of some big games, as you just mentioned. I mean, you seeing some of that same stuff. I know, again, you haven't played specifically a game in the Sun Belt just yet, but with your home atmosphere, maybe, I mean, is that rival to where you've been experiencing before at some of these bigger schools, as they call them?
Yeah. Georgia Southern fans from, we've played out of our, 13 games, I think we've played, 17 games we've played, or 16 games, whatever it was. The games at home, I mean, are great. I've got, like, on opening night against Western Carolina, great crowd. And I was, given the opportunity to open up for us. And that was, one of my favorite experiences I've been a part of and stuff. And as of, talent or whatever people think about, Power 4 now to mid majors. I mean, I've gotten to play with a lot of kids in summer ball that have gone to Coastal Carolina, Campbell, like a bunch of schools that, aren't necessarily Power 5, Power 4, but I mean, these guys come to play baseball just like everybody else. And, our coach Hennon and I've talked about it before, like at Brown. I mean, these guys came in last weekend to beat us. So we had to show up to play just like everybody else does.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the same. We're all just playing baseball. We all have the same goal. I mean, nothing changes. You're still playing on a diamond. You're still playing 4 bases. I mean, the fields are the exact same, just the stadiums might be a little different. But coming from Georgia, the fans here pack out better than they did when I was there. I remember Coach Hennon talking about when I came here, we average here more fans than we did when I was there. And I thought that was actually pretty impressive. And the crowd's a little different too. The crowd here is a little more rowdy, which I like. They get into it a lot.
Nice. I love to hear that, man. I have seen enough guys that say, and this isn't just baseball specific, this is football, even basketball, they actually like when the away crowd, and probably the home crowd to some extent, is kind of chirping them, going after them, getting excited, getting loud, because it helps them elevate their play or play to a different level because of, somebody getting under their skin is helpful, or somebody just making them laugh and not take it so seriously. I guess you guys heard some good chirps, from people that just kind of maybe they thought they were getting under your skin, but it was just funny instead.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was one time we went to Mississippi State last year. I mean, they had so many people. You're just hearing so many different things, and like with that energy of how many people are in the stadium, it's just fun, and you're just hearing so many different things, and like you hear guys in the dugout just laughing about what this person said or this person, because you hear so many different things. But I mean, I think it just when people chirp you, it kind of just makes a little edge. It gives you a little edge. It just makes it a little different. It makes it more fun, more interesting. I mean, and when you do something good, it just makes it that much better.
Yeah. Nice. My sophomore year, we played at Kentucky. So Louisville and Kentucky, big rivals. And Kentucky was just now starting to climb back to being a respectable program. And it was like frat and sorority night or Greek night or whatever at the park. And I think up to that date, it was like the most they've ever, had. It was like 22,000 or something absurd. And their away bullpen has like it's down underneath like the stadium. Or like everybody can stand up top and watch you throw. So a bunch of frats were, letting us have it for, 9 innings, and we ended up beating them that night. So, which was pretty cool. We got to shut them up, but having fans or like a fan base getting involved in the games keeps, the atmosphere pretty nice.
Yeah. I like to go to games where people care, right? I mean, yeah. You've seen pro games, you've seen college games, you've seen high school games where, it's quiet and there's not much of an interaction, and it's hard to get into sometimes as a fan from that aspect when that's happening, especially if the game's not better quality on the field at that moment. But yeah, I mean, it's just all around more fun when you get to interact and have a little more fun, and atmosphere's a little bit louder. Ben, our resident Arkansas State Red Wolves fan, a little up and down after last night with the women's team making the big dance, but the men's team falling a little short to Troy. Congratulations to them for moving on to the big dance. You guys basketball fans? I think the one of you, let me see who it was that had this. Was it Kade? You're the all-time basketball leading scorer for your high school. Is that still correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. So you hold current high school records for hits, strikeouts, basketball leading scorer, as we mentioned, most football receiving yards in a season, all-time assist and steals leader. Kade, we're gonna have to get you to step up that athleticism, buddy. I don't know why you're trailing behind so far, but yeah, were you looked at for other sports for college, or were you set on baseball?
Well, I committed to Louisville as an 8th grader. So, which at the time was a really big deal. And obviously it was a lot to take in as a, 14, 15-year-old kid. But, there was definitely opportunity. Football was more, like getting opportunity, or because my quarterback at the time was going to Kentucky, or he had committed to Kentucky. So before that, there was always schools coming to games and stuff. And I got my first offer to Western Michigan my junior year for football. And then once that happened, I started getting more calls or texts or whatever from coaches. But, I didn't want to entertain all that, even though it was a very cool experience to be able to, get looks in, different sports other than baseball. But, decided to obviously, not entertain those things and just, try to play baseball, or not even try to entertain playing football at all. But in basketball, obviously, I'm not I'm only about 6'1", so don't think that opportunity of playing professional basketball was ever in my cards. But, playing basketball was one of the more fun things I've gotten to do. Played with some great players, played against some great players. Reed Shepard, who was the 3rd overall pick last year, played against him in high school a few times. Got to play against a bunch of, collegiate players that played, high Power 4 schools. But, it brought a lot of competitiveness out of me into baseball, because it may not be as, active as those 2 other sports, but it brings that out of you, being able to play multiple sports in high school.
Yeah. Well, you stuck with the professional sport that offers the largest guaranteed contract. So, in that sense, you made the right decision. I constantly tell my son, if you want to be good at one sport, if you can only choose one, baseball might be it, my man. So, what is it? What's the guy that played for the Mets that's still getting paid now?
Bobby Bonilla.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. What a life, right? Just be good for a little while, get a massive guaranteed contract, and fail to meet expectations. That's all you got to do, right? But seriously, that's a sport that pays very well. Josh, I don't want to leave you out of this. Maybe you were really good in other sports too, but officially listed here, 5A state champion when you were back in your high school days.
Yep.
Played summer ball with, and this is just a random fact because I love the name, Home Plate Chili Dogs.
That's
I
right.
can only imagine what that logo and that jersey looks like. So I want to see that someday here. I got to look that up. And you were also, winning a part of the 2020 Perfect Game Southeast Fall World Series. And that was with the Chili Dogs, right?
Yep.
Nice. What was that experience like, getting that far and playing for the Chili Dogs?
I mean, it was just fun. So the summer ball aspect, like growing up, is just playing with a bunch of different guys from different places. Like for my team, we had so many guys from all around the U.S., so it was kind of just meeting a bunch of different people and just playing together and having fun. And that's what summer baseball was about, just playing together, playing good. And at that time, we were playing to get college recruitments, and that's what it was. But at the same time, we were just having fun, being with your boys. I mean, there's nothing better, really. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Very nice. I have a question that Marv usually asks. and I like this one because we've gotten a lot of different answers on here. And I'm going to start with you, Josh, because the question is bat flip or slow trot. So you hit one, it's gone. Maybe you do neither, but if you do one, which one are you doing?
What you mean, like just the trot slow, or like you're just dropping the bat and just jogging?
I think specifically it's one of those like kind of sidestepping, but not too fast. Maybe giving the pitcher a little look. Maybe just watching the ball officially go all the way over the wall before you really start into any kind of stride, almost at the first base.
I think for me, honestly, I've never been really big of either because I'm not a big home run guy. I don't hit a lot of home runs, but I feel like it would just depend on the situation. But I mean, I feel like you hit a home run, you could just watch it. I think that's a good feeling.
Nice. Okay. And Kade, for you on the opposite side of the spectrum, what do you hate more as a pitcher? What gets under your skin a little more? Is it the slow trot or the bat flip?
Neither. It's my fault to hit a home run to begin with, so I don't need to be upset about it. I've had a few occasions where somebody's bat flipped, and it hasn't been me that has said anything to the person. It's usually the catcher or a corner infielder. Usually, had one go over a batter's eye my freshman year. Still remember it to this day. It was pretty brutal, but I missed where I was supposed to throw it, so he did what he was supposed to do with it.
Gotcha. All right. So pretty tame on both sides of that. That's probably the most tame answers we've had. Usually guys get those big smiles and they're like bat flip right away. They got something they're selling me on. But the pitchers actually, I will say, Kate, are kind of similar. Usually there might be one that they say bothers them more, but you're right. You kind of have to move on, right? And just kind of forget about it. What's interesting, just a totally side topic here. One thing I've read from, I can't remember the publication that found this out, but they were looking at the differences between top pro players and specifically tennis. But hand-eye coordination being a part of what you guys do and what tennis does, maybe some similarities here. They said when you broke it down and you looked at all the top players, they all train roughly the same. They all ate roughly the same, right? They're doing the clean eats. They're doing the workouts that they're supposed to do. They're working hard while they do them. But the biggest thing that set the top 5 apart from the rest of the other great players that are all towards the top was the ability to lower their heart rate and move on to the next part of the game without getting overly worked up or worried about what was about to happen next. And I thought that was really interesting. And I'm sure that, again, Kade, that kind of sounds what you were just alluding to. Like, you're the pitcher. You've got to pitch to the next guy too, right? So you just have to move on. Is that something that you guys have ever really been taught or kind of made aware of? I thought it was, as a former athlete, a retired athlete from the high school level only, I never got to the pinnacle of what you guys are participating in, but just an interesting thing to read about something kind of minor when you really look at the bigger scheme of things, but something that could make such a big difference in the end for athletes at that kind of level. Is that something that you guys practice kind of, or, are aware of to try and do more often?
I feel like you kind of just learn it as you go. I feel like it's something we talk about, definitely. I mean, we even talk about it as a team now, kind of not getting too high, not getting too low, and just kind of just staying even keel. We talk about that as a team a lot, but I feel like you learn that as a player during just playing and going to certain places that you've never been to in certain environments and stuff like that. That kind of helps. Like, for instance, last year we went and played in front of 14,000 fans at Mississippi State. Like, a lot of people haven't done that. And I'm sure a lot of feelings and anxiety and stuff was kind of off the charts a little bit. But if you talk to guys that were there last year, and if, like, I think this year we go to University of Florida, and they'll have a lot of fans too. The guys that were there last year, it's kind of just like an even keel line that they'll be at now because they've experienced it, they've learned it, and their bodies kind of naturally just absorbed it.
Yeah, and some, as a pitcher, I guess, because once you're on the mound, all eyes are on you for that inning until the next inning or whatever. And when bad things are always going to happen, you give up a double, walk somebody or whatever, or errors happen behind you, it happens. But growing up, playing all those other sports, you have to accept failure to an extent and not be able to show how that affected you, especially as a pitcher, in my opinion. Like as a hitter, if you strike out in a big situation, obviously the walk back to the dugout sucks. But once you get into the dugout, I've done this before as a pitcher after an inning, I'll go into the bathroom and say some things to myself or whatever. But, being in, a pitcher, and sometimes you pitch in big games where there's a lot of fans and all eyes are on you, and maybe you're hearing things or, things just aren't going your way. You can't let it affect how you're going to finish that inning and take it into the rest of the game.
Yeah, I like that. I like those answers. I don't know if it was just an oversight or what, but I feel like that was something as a kid, I played sports, like I never thought of, right? Like I'm getting up in that moment, whatever is happening. So that shows you a little bit of what makes the difference. Again, why you guys are playing at a higher level than, a lot of other kids who don't make it to the college ranks. And speaking of that, you guys, as we talked about, have both come to Georgia Southern from different schools. How did you guys specifically end up here? I guess, Josh, we'll start with you.
For me, so my freshman year, I was at Georgia, and then went to go play summer ball, and then got word that our whole coaching staff got fired. They cleared house, and so I went to the portal and was talking to a bunch of teams. And our catcher, Sean White, I actually went to high school with him, and we grew up together. And he was talking. We were just talking, and I was asking him how he liked it down here and everything. And he was talking to the coaches, and then I got in contact with the coaches, and he was like, why don't you just come down here and just go on a visit? And I had a couple of friends that went here that I grew up with as well. And I came down here and went on a visit and just fell in love. I mean, there's opportunity here. It's a great place to play. It's a great atmosphere. The school's great. Everything around it, the town, the people, the community, it's just all a great place. And I kind of fell in love with it. And I'm glad I made the decision to come here because I love it.
Nice. I like that. Okay.
With my situation when I entered the portal, I was able to get in a week early because I was a graduate transfer. Even though I'm technically a senior, I am a senior. I just graduated in 3 years from Louisville, so I was able to put my name in early. So I got to talk to some teams earlier than when the portal opened to everybody else. But my older brother went here for a year to play baseball, and that didn't work out. But he has nothing but good things to say about Statesboro, and getting communication with Coach Hennon, Coach Batisto, Coach Wofford. I was able to kind of be able to see myself coming down here, and for me it was more about like the opportunity. Getting the opportunity, come play at a competitive team, a competitive conference like the Sun Belt. And, it's not that much different than everywhere else. I mean, you still play guys that have the ability to go play professional baseball. You still have guys that, have the ability to throw, upper 90s, whatever. You're going to see as good of players here as you would in the ACC, SEC. And, just being able to come down here, I committed here before I even took a visit. So I committed over the phone, and then, like a week later, I came down for a few days and stayed with some of the returners that were, here for the summer. But, being able to see it down here, it's a lot better than Kentucky. The weather's a lot better. Not as much snow. We did get some snow this year, but, being able to be in a warm weather state and, experiencing, getting to play baseball not in 20-degree weather has been great.
Yeah, that can't be too much fun. I know you've got some teams in the northern part of this conference that would probably like to get into some indoor stuff. I don't think there's not a single indoor venue for college baseball anywhere, is there? That you guys are aware of?
I don't believe so.
I didn't think so. I feel like someday we may see it, but let me ask you a question too, based off of that temperature aspect. The Marshall head coach, who we've tried to get on the show because of his stance on this, but he's been very adamant about pushing the start of baseball season back because of how many games are played, away from home from, I don't know, northern teams, right, that have to deal with incredibly cold weather or snow to start the year. There's teams in this conference that have to kind of deal with that, specifically App State coming down off the mountain, only being about an hour away. They've got a nice little minor league facility that they play in. I know some of that stuff's done in other spots too. What are your guys' thoughts on when the season starts and when the season ends? And are you kind of good with how it is, or do you guys have thoughts and feelings on starting a little bit later as well? Josh, we'll start with you on that one.
I mean, being down here, the weather doesn't get too cold with the way we start now. But, I mean, when we finish playing, we're already out of school. So if we just kept – like if the season started later – that just means for us we wouldn't be in school and be able to play longer, if like the time wise. So, but I mean, for me, I think it's fine the way we start now. What time of the year we start now, because down here the weather's not that bad, and by the time we do have to go up north, it's usually later in the season.
Makes sense. Kate, you got any feelings? Like you just mentioned it a little bit more with the Kentucky aspect, so maybe you have a different thought process, but I want to hear what this is.
I mean, playing in the snow, miserable. I've had to do it many times, or playing in freezing weather a lot. But, I don't see a reason to push it back, because the way that the season ends and then summer ball starts in so many ways, like all the leagues start, a few weeks after the season ends, or just regular season. And then, I mean, even when the College World Series is going on, summer balls are already playing games. So, and I think summer ball is one of the more important things of college baseball for development reasons. But, I don't think change would, help anything, especially, getting, young freshmen getting into play summer ball and competitive levels that may have not got as much ABs or as many innings as they had hoped as a freshman. So, and there's no reason to, stay at school playing that longer when you could go to play a summer ball in a summer ball league and, get the experience you need to, come back and help the next year.
That makes sense. I actually hadn't thought about the summer league aspect of it, because you're right. I mean, so you start 2 weeks later, and there's guys that probably won't be able to play summer ball in some cases, because luckily maybe that they're that far into the College World Series aspect of things. But yeah, an aspect of it that I hadn't totally thought about. Is there any part of either one of you who thinks there's too few or too many games played in college baseball at the moment, or are you kind of also good with the schedule as it is?
I think I'm good with the schedule. I mean, I haven't had any issues with it, or like timing wise, or, think it's too long or too less. I mean, I think it's compared to what, minor league teams play and major league teams play. I mean, I think it's a good number. Obviously, making a transition, and I've heard this from guys that, I've played with in college that play in the minors now. Obviously it's a big adjustment having to play 100. I can't remember the number. It's like 140 something games in minor leagues, I believe. And that's obviously a massive jump from the 56 regular season games we play.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's perfect the way it is. I mean, the jump to minor, like if you do get the chance to play professional baseball, it is a big jump. And I have friends that play pro ball, and they've said the same thing. But, I mean, if you end up going all the way, you can play up to 72, 73 games. So, I mean, it is still half, but I think the way our season is set up, it's pretty good.
And we still have to graduate or, do homework and stuff. So can't play too many games.
Yeah. That's very true. It's like, I think some people forget there's still like 2 jobs to do here. Like you still have to be a student. Maybe someday that changes with this NIL craziness and everything else. But for now, you guys still have to pull double duty and get it done on 2 spots at the same time. Let's kind of change gears here. I did have just one other graphic to kind of bring up here. One of the reasons we look to have you on, obviously not having a midweek was a perfect opportunity for us to ask you on. But you completed a sweep of Brown at home over this weekend, with you guys having great starts, both of you specifically on, I believe it was the Friday game that you guys won 11-1. Am I correct on that one? Yeah. Kade, you went for 7 innings, just 4 hits, 1 run, and 7 Ks, man. And again, you look at it, you're just the consistent person on the graphic here with the 28 jersey. It's one of your better pictures. It's kind of funny, pictures and pictures. But one of the better pictures that you have online right now from your stance. A lot of them are, you standing somewhere, and I'm like, man, I want to get an action shot. And realize that this is one of your better ones that you've got right now. And of course, as you play more games as an Eagle, those will come to fruition even more. Josh had a nice one when he's swinging the bat that I got to use today, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, just talk about your start there this past weekend and getting that sweep and what that does going into this weekend's matchup against Coastal Carolina, a ranked team at number 24 currently in D1 baseball.
Yeah. So going into the weekend, obviously we knew that, Brown was struggling early on. I mean, having a rough start to the season. They haven't been home a ton. They've been playing away from home a bunch. But, coming in, the scouting report that our pitching coach and our assistant pitching coach does for me, gets me as prepared as I could be for a start. And, I know how I'm going to attack, hitters in certain counts, or, how aggressive certain hitters are in 0-0 counts to 1-1 counts, But even though I'm not calling the pitches, our pitching coach is, I'm confident because of the work he puts in that goes into what I'm going to do this inning to this inning, or to this batter to this batter. I'm confident, and I know whatever pitch he calls, I know that I'm confident in myself to execute that pitch. So this weekend was a big, step forward for me. Like I said before we started, being able to go 7 innings and throw 90 pitches, gives me the confidence to be able to, know that I can extend a start to 6, 7, maybe even 8 innings, depending on how smoothly of a, first 3 innings may go, try to keep the pitch count down, of course, but, being in a position to, extend games and help our team be in a position to win is the main thing.
Absolutely. Josh, I don't want to leave you out of this. You started the weekend off with 4 at-bats, 3 runs, 2 hits, 2 RBIs, really only at 11 at-bats, only 1 strikeout on the whole weekend, man. So phenomenal stuff from you as well. How important was a weekend like this setting up going into Coastal and traveling to Conway?
Yeah, I mean, just a big confidence booster for me and myself and our whole team as a whole, as an offense and pitching staff. It was good to see Grundy do what he did Friday night and go out and shove it. Just allowing us to see things that we can see that we do good. That's a big thing for us to see as a team and an offense, and for myself as well. Just being able to build off the things that we're doing really good, and maybe see some things that we're just not doing as good, even though we did win and we did sweep. You can still point out some things that still need to get better. But also just building on the things that are already good and just making them better and making them great. I think that's the biggest thing that we took from this weekend.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense there in that one. I just wanted to jump back Instagram comments from Paul. He says, just touching back on the schedule aspect, bad idea to push the start of the season back. The NCAA would eventually shorten the season. Teams will try to pack more games into the week, and the kids will never be in class, which, again, that's the problem that we alluded to, right? You guys still have 2 jobs to do, technically, as we know, as student athletes. You guys haven't spent a lot of time on the road. Is this weekend kind of something you're really looking forward to? I mean, you kind of came up close traveling to Campbell. It's probably not terribly different as far as timing-wise in a bus. But is there a little bit of excitement to kind of hit the road for a little series up here?
Yeah. And I'm glad that our first road trip was a really competitive team in Campbell, who I think is going to end up having a really good year. They had a great, they had an offense that could really swing it, and so does Coastal. We know what we're going into. We know they're a good program. We know they're having a good year, and we're going to have to play exceptionally well to take the series, especially at their home field. So, but I think it's good for the guys to get on the road. I mean, long bus rides are always good for the team. You play games, whatever it may be. I think getting the freshmen that get to travel and stuff, get to see that sort of different side of things of college baseball that they may not always hear about.
Yeah, speaking of the travel, Josh, I'll go to you since we just got that from Kade, who talked about playing games on the bus. As we've heard and talked about on this show with just about every player and coach so far, there's a game called Mafia. All right. So I really, again, I want to be a part of this one day because I feel like I won't really know it until I experience it. But what, and maybe I'm asking this question wrong, so I'll ask you this too. What do you play, or what are you assigned, or what is your choice, or do you get a choice? I don't know how it works. So Josh, explain to me a little bit about how it works for you guys, or just in general.
So Mafia is a game that you can play with however many people you want on the bus. It's a great game to pass time, especially when you have long bus rides. But there's a person called the narrator, and he basically narrates the game. So he usually picks. So there's different people. You got the Godfather, who's basically the head of the mafia, for so to say, and then you can recruit mafia members. So they'll have mafia members. There's a nurse. There is what we play. There's Kamikaze, where you can, if you get, you don't get to pick who you are. The narrator picks for everybody. The only person that the narrator doesn't pick is the mafia. That's who the Godfather gets to pick if he was recruiting. There's cops. There's nurses. The Kamikaze gets, if they want to basically kill anybody they want. That's like, say. And there's also townies. It's the townsmen, as you could say. And so usually in each round there's a vote for who people think are in the mafia and in the Godfather, and everybody talks. You don't know who is who, so you're trying to figure that out. Say like a kamikaze person gets voted off. Right before they get voted off, they can say they want to kamikaze somebody, and they basically take them out with them. And then they're both out of the game. And like we play where there's the little lights on the ceiling of the bus. That's how you know if you're alive or not. But that's pretty much it. And you just play rounds on rounds, trying to figure out who the mafia is and the Godfather. And sometimes the townsmen win and sometimes they don't. But it's definitely a lot of fun with the guys.
Okay, so that's one of the better explanations I've gotten so far. So then I have a question of this. So you're all on this bus, right? There's not a ton of room. How do you start that game without everybody hearing and seeing, who the Godfather's picking to be on his roster or so of sorts? How does that go down?
So you just got to keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
And you can tell when people are cheating. Like if people don't close their eyes, sometimes people know a little bit too much, or like in basically a townsman vote, I guess you could say, of who's who, or trying to vote one person off. You can just tell if they're keeping their eyes open, they might say some certain things, and it's just like, yeah, that's just a little suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can see who's lying.
Yeah. Sorry, Kade, go ahead.
You can see whose poker face is good or not too, especially if they see how good of a liar they are and able to keep themselves in the game.
Gotcha. So, and also, is this across baseball? It sounds like it is. I mean, you guys played this at Louisville and Georgia as well. Like, this is not a new thing, right?
Yeah, no, it's like the bus ride game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense though. You have to have something like that, right? Like you can't really play cards because everybody's. I'm guessing buses are still like they were when I rode them, was 2 per row all the way down, right? I mean,
yep.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta see one of these, and I'm sure there's video clips somewhere that I could look up, but. Yeah, this is more intriguing as we go along here, and I get to hear more. And like I said, Josh, appreciate that explanation. That was probably one of the better ones. I have to ask this, as a bunch of males playing a sport, is it funny to pick the guy who's the nurse, or is that really not, like, you guys don't even think about that aspect of it?
Not really. I mean, you got certain guys that'll make a joke out of it or just make it kind of funny, but it's just another character in the game.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I figured, right? Like, do they have the ability to like revive someone, kind of thing,
yeah.
or is it?
So, like when they can choose, so the narrator asks the nurse, be like, "Hey, who do you want to save?" And if the mafia kills somebody and they pick the person that was killed, like say if it was a cop, for instance, the mafia killed the cop and the nurse saved the cop, so therefore the cop was saved. And the cop is a very important person in the game. And so like the nurse can save him, or like if a moth just killed a townsman and the nurse saves the townsman, he's still alive.
Gotcha. Okay. And these games last, this is the one question I actually haven't asked yet. These games last like 2 hours, or is this like a kind of, is it really dependent?
It depends. I mean, it can range. I feel like we've played, maybe on the last bus trip, we played like an hour-long game. It was like 12 rounds.
Yeah.
Wow.
But when that one's done, we just play another one right after it anyway. There might be like a 5-minute intermission just to, do whatever, but we'll play one right after usually, depending on how much longer we have on the bus ride.
I just love this because it sounds like back when I traveled playing sports, like there was no cell phones. I'm now aging myself at almost 40 years old, but there was no cell phones on the bus rides. There was no tablets, right? Like you had to find things to do. I remember I ran track for a little bit early in high school, and you kind of tried to play cards on the bus. I guess mostly it was like you got off the bus and did it before the meet started or whatever. But this is one aspect of baseball that I just absolutely love, is that you guys are like all in it as a team, all the way from start to finish of a bus ride. It's not 40 dudes in a bus with headphones in, all playing on their phone for 3.5 hours until they get there. So that's an aspect I love about, baseball already has a little bit of that like old school mentality, thought process behind the scenes, but to hear that it's kind of still exists, but there's also the camaraderie of the team. Like it's a very cool thing that I guess I just wasn't aware of, right? I mean, specifically this game. But you just think, you see all the football players getting off the bus anymore these days. It's just feels like they just do that the whole way, right? Like they just sit there with their headphones in and they don't talk to each other much. Hopefully that's not really the case, but it just feels like baseball has this different aspect to it, which I love. So yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff, fellas. I really had one other question written down technically. So either restaurant or specific food, and maybe just from this year, if it makes it easier, maybe ever, if you've got something that really stands out, a food location or a food type that really you've enjoyed while being on the road, whether it's just a place you always hit or something that's stuck out because it was just so damn good or something. Kade, can start with you on that one. You got, again, you can go back to the school before this days if you want to. It's not dependent on a Georgia Southern aspect, just wherever.
So it's Olive Garden is the one that I want to, because we used to always get the tour of Italy, which was lasagna, chicken parm, and chicken Alfredo, or just Alfredo, but whatever it was. And it was great. It had everything. I don't know why every time we got somewhere, if we had that on Thursday night, it was the best Thursday night of the week. I mean, Thursday night of the month, like everything was great. That weekend was going to be good. Usually, I swear, every time we had that on Thursday, we ended up winning the weekend. So that is one that I always looked forward to. We would always hope that we were going to get that when we after our practice on Thursday night on the road.
Nice. I like that one. Olive Garden's a solid choice. I agree with that. Josh?
For me, I kind of have two places. One place that is always the best for us to stop at is Buc-ee's. A Buc-ee's run is just the best. Usually it takes about 20-25 minutes, and you get pulled pork, brisket, whatever snacks you want, whatever drinks you want. I mean, they have it. You name it, they got it. But for my number two, well, I guess this would be technically my number one. When we were at Mississippi State, their fans were pretty brutal, but after the games, they actually fed us. And they were cooking like some crazy ribs and brisket, like behind the outfield fence with grills out there. And that was probably the best ribs and brisket I've ever had.
Nice. That's one I hadn't heard of. We've heard of the Cajun Cooking Club. For those that have been to Louisiana, it's kind of a staple. It sounds similar to what you just described, Josh, at Mississippi. Have you had the opportunity to play at Louisiana, Josh?
I haven't. This will be my first year.
Okay, cool. Well, there's a heads up if you haven't already heard it. I'm sure in your circles you're aware of it before ever meeting me. But yeah, apparently that is one thing to greatly look forward to on that Cajun trip. Plus, kind of the same thing you just said with Mississippi State. They're going to give you some hell when you're out there on the field, but they'll make up to it by feeding you well after. So hopefully you guys get to enjoy both aspects of that for you specifically, right? But yeah, I mean, this was absolutely fantastic stuff, guys. I really appreciate your time tonight. Is there anything you guys want to close with or say before we get out of here?
Just thank you for having me.
But yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for taking the time. Thanks to your coach, Wofford, for specifically hooking me up with the two of you and giving you guys a little bit of a syndicate bump, as you will, because we've had a couple guys on, and it seems like right after they come on, they have a nice little stretch, game or two. So hopefully you carry that into the weekend, and it helps you on the conference opener. So good luck against number 24 Coastal Carolina, and we will certainly be watching you guys.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you guys. All right. And now there was one. We still have a couple things that we'll cover on the show tonight before I get out of here. Again, Seth and Marv unfortunately had to leave me solo on the night. Luckily, we had two really cool guests. I liked interacting with those guys. Hopefully, you guys liked those interviews. We'll touch on the weekly picks. Again, we won't spend as much time on this because I'm solo talking all of it by myself this week. I picked up my second win, of the season. Now just 2-10 overall. I incorrectly thought that Texas State would turn it on and complete a sweep of the Campbells, or the Campbell Camels. I think I got that backwards, but they did not, unfortunately. Both Seth and Marv picked 2-1 series victories for Texas State as well, on those both being wrong, unfortunately, as Campbell took that series 2-1 instead. So nobody got that one right. The next one, Georgia State. I thought they'd complete a sweep of Western Carolina, as Georgia Southern did to start the year. But Western Carolina did steal one. And so Seth and Marv correctly picked that one in favor of of Georgia State, but Western stealing a game. I went with the sweep there. I did correctly pick App State getting one from College of Charleston. They've been kind of hot and cold throughout this season, but a pretty good team overall there and a tough opponent for App State. But they did get one where they really scored. They had the bats working in that one. Seth incorrectly picked Charleston's sweep, and Marv was with me. So those two guys are both tied at 5-7 overall. I'm sitting there at 2-10. And my buddy Dom is picking on me, 2-10 on the season. Come on, Dom. Yeah, it's not good. Again, we grade ourselves really hard here. There are no easy wins. You can't just call the series victory. You have to get the exact games correct, and that is why my record is so bad. And that's the only reason, right? Anyway, we will see how that progresses further. Best in class again. And we'll kind of rifle through this. Not a lot of changes from last week as we go from single A up to double, up to triple, and then kind of the premier teams as they sit. We got a lot of teams listed in triple A right now. A lot of the teams in single A kind of the same. JMU unfortunately went down to Charlotte and got swept down there. ULM did win their series. I just got to question whether the opponent was the best or not. And A-State there doing decently, but again, opponent has to come into factor there. ODU, Texas State, and App State sitting there in our double A column right now. And then again, a logjam with the triple A's, all kind of flirting with getting up there closer, as South Alabama also winning tonight against a ranked opponent in Ole Miss. So there's another reason why they may be a little bit closer to the show there. Marshall continues their role as they get a victory over Central Michigan. I don't know if I saw the final in that one or not before we went live here. So not exactly sure. Georgia Southern, as those guys are just on, getting that big important sweep of Brown before heading into that ranked matchup versus Coastal Carolina this weekend in conference play. The Cajuns, I could probably drop them out, but I'm not going to hurt them too bad for Dallas Baptist loss, because Dallas Baptist is a very good baseball team, a ranked baseball team. So I am rewarding them for playing a tough schedule. But yeah, they could soon find their way down into the double A section if the losing continues. Georgia State, again, a little bit of the opponents being a little bit easier as far as strength of schedule goes, but they are still winning, and they're still mostly winning impressively. And then Troy, our three ranked teams, Troy, Southern Miss, and Coastal Carolina, all up there at the top at the show level at this point in time. Here is Tuesday's slate. Again, a lot of these games were still in the works, finishing up, or had just gone final right before we went live, so I did not have the time to update this. This will come out just after this show. I will go and complete these. But ODU had a game against Mississippi State. Troy, I believe, was down to Jackson State. The last I saw, Jacksonville State, I'm sorry, before we went live. Wake Forest and Coastal were locked up in a tight one. I think it was a 5-4 lead for Wake Forest over Coastal last I checked. Charlotte was just ahead of App State. JMU went down to Virginia Tech, unfortunately, but I think that was only a one-run game in that one. Memphis, Arkansas State were pretty close and knotted up right there. Again, South Alabama gets the upset over number 13 Ole Miss in the midweek. Great game for the Jags to jump back up there. Marshall playing well yet again. Southern Miss was pretty early in their game, so I'm not really sure what's happening there. Still ranked number 22 overall in the latest D1 baseball rankings. TCU, Texas State was just kind of getting going before we got going here. Georgia State and Georgia Tech, very interesting matchup there. I'm not sure how that one finished out. ULM and Alcorn were pretty close starting out, and Southern and Louisiana also in a close one as that one got going. On Wednesday slate, much easier, much quicker. A rematch. Central Michigan and Marshall will go once again on Wednesday. Georgia State gets their second power opponent of the week as they go to South Carolina to play the Gamecocks, and McNeese travels to Lafayette to play the Cajuns. So real easy look there. And then weekend series. So we just talked about Georgia Southern traveling to number 24 Coastal Carolina. We also have ULM traveling to Harrisonburg to play the Dukes of JMU. Texas State on the road to travel up to App State and Boone. South Alabama goes to Georgia State. That one becomes a lot more intriguing where both teams sit, and with that big victory for the Jags after tonight. ODU traveling on the road to the Pete at number 22. Southern Miss. Troy, ranked number 21 currently, traveling to the Trojans, or I'm traveling to the Cajuns down there in Lafayette. And Marshall goes on the road to play Arkansas State over there in Jonesboro. So, man, what a slate. We got to see what happens this weekend, but a lot of baseball to cover, a lot to look forward to. Again, conference finally starting off. Also, before we get out of here, basketball show tomorrow. I was out of town this past week, so we did not have a basketball show during the tournament as I kind of would have liked to have done, but we will certainly do one tomorrow to wrap everything up, talk about some possible seeds for Troy, maybe some postseason opportunities for maybe a team or two. We'll have to see. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.